Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right?
Oh!
The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
and he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome. This is Wacky Wednesday on the Arrowhead Addict channel. I'm Adam Best, joined as always by Sterling Holmes. Producer Richard is doing his thing behind the scenes. Always grateful for his presence. Sterling, there's no way to sugarcoat it. We had a rough weekend, but we are here. We are ready to talk through it. I have an expression that goes, just move forward. It's something that I've told myself constantly in my life, whether it was with startups or breakups or things that work, things that didn't work out. Sometimes you just have to move forward, and you can learn from the past, but you can't influence the past. You can only influence the future. So we're taking what we learned on Sunday, or what I think I learned, and we're projecting that forward into the future of the Chiefs. Because let's be honest, a lot of the Chiefs haters are talking about this like it's over. Like, you know, Mahomes is done and it was a nice run. I think we might not even be at intermission yet. So that's the exciting part. Sterling, are you hanging in there?
Oh, I'm fine, baby. I'm golden. The Chiefs, they won 2 in a row before this. I'm okay. I'm thriving, even some say. Yeah, man, I'm doing well over here in Kansas City. Barbecue still good. Weather not great, but it snowed, so it's at least pretty outside. You gotta see when it's cold outside, at least you can be happy about the snow. Gotta find some beauty somewhere.
Yeah, it's all about perspective. The Chiefs won 49 games in 3 seasons. No team has ever done that other than the Chiefs. They won 2 Super Bowls and went to a third one. No team has ever done that. No team has ever gone to 7 conference championships in a row. And I was listening to another podcast today, not football, but the guy's a Jets fan. And he said, I would stab somebody for 1 Super Bowl championship. 1. So we can't be too sad about not getting a 4th in 6 years. I think we're going to be all right. And I think the Chiefs are going to be all right. But we titled this show Chiefs at the Crossroads because I do think this is a moment where they're going to have to pivot a little bit.
And because we love Robert Johnson.
I was going to say Bone Thugs and Harmony.
No. I went a little before your time there, Adam.
Yeah, I think you did.
You know Robert Johnson, right? The guitarist that sold his soul to the devil, sang Crossroads.
I know about that, but that's not what gave me the idea. Bone Thugs and Harmony, was that before your time? Are you?
No, I'm with it. I like the Crossroads by Robert Johnson, the blues version. John Mayer did a good cover of it. Cream, Eric Clapton did a great cover of it. I mean, there's been so many great covers of that song.
So what we're going to do today is top 10 takeaways from the Super Bowl loss. I just have a ton of thoughts. I've been basically tweeting through it and trying to figure and sort this all out about where the Chiefs are as a franchise. I'm going to rattle 10 off, and each time I'm going to pick Sterling's brain. He's an insightful dude. We always have good back and forth exchanges. Good, I love having these conversations, these big picture conversations. And like I said, the Chiefs are at an inflection point. So let's do some big picture thinking. Let's dig right in. My first point, number 1, is the Alex Smithification of Patrick Mahomes finally went too far. So I'm going to walk you through this. These are going to be like itty bitty hot take kingdoms. And then you get the opportunity to agree, to clap back, to land somewhere in the middle. So shifting the offense to a dink and dunk yak attack made sense. It was a reasonable response to the too high shell shift across the league defensively that wanted to eliminate explosive plays. But I think the Chiefs went overboard. Let's look at Mahomes' yards per attempt. That's yards per passing attempt on the regular season for each of his seasons as a starter so far. 2018, 8.8 yards, second. 2019, 8.3 yards, fourth. 2020, 8.1 yards, fifth. 2021, 7.4 yards, 16th. 2022, 8.1 yards, third. 2023, here's where it gets interesting, 7, that is 23rd in the league. And then this year, 2024, 6.8, good for 27th in the league. And I know everyone's saying, well, what are we supposed to do? These two high defenses. Guys, Josh Allen sees the exact same defenses. And that offense and Josh Allen in 2023, he was 7.4, 13th. That's 10 ahead of Mahomes. And this year, Josh Allen was at 7.7 yards, 8th. That is almost 20 spots ahead of Mahomes. So this is not really like a Mahomes criticism. This is an offensive scheme criticism. The Buffalo Bills are figuring out how to continue throwing the deep ball despite the changes around the league. So to some extent, I'm saying this is a prison of the Chiefs' own making. And what frustrates me is it limits Pat's arm talent. He's the only guy I've ever seen that can make any throw from any angle and any platform. And they're kind of taking that away from him a little bit. And when you have no explosive in the running game to speak of and none in the passing game, Pat has to be perfect. That's a lot to ask of a quarterback who isn't even 30 yet, to ask him to be Drew Brees or Tom Brady pushing 40. It's just a little much. And it also condenses the field way more than it needs to be. I mean, look at that bomb he uncorked to Xavier Worthy late in the game. And I know Eagles fans, if you're listening, you're going to say it was in garbage time. The point is not that it happened in that game. The point is that look at what Mahomes is capable of. Look at the kind of, I mean, it was just a rope just dropped in perfectly. We know that is in his repertoire. So I would like to see it come back. We traded for Patrick Mahomes to get more explosive plays because Alex Smith couldn't generate enough. Then we kind of turned Patrick Mahomes back into Alex Smith. I understand there was too much Brett Favre in Patrick Mahomes when he arrived in Kansas City, but now we need a little more Brett Favre back in his playing style. I've thrown a lot at you, Sterling. Tell me what you think about all this.
Well, I think Patrick Mahomes has the best instincts of any quarterback in the NFL, and right now he's not trusting the instincts. I don't know if this is a situation where it's because the offensive line he has no faith in, or if this, again, is a situation where he's trying so hard to reel back in, not make mistakes, that he's no longer making the plays that he once made. I think he's a little bit in his head right now, and I think he's overthinking. And when you overthink, you have a tendency to make bad plays and bad throws, even in situations that you're used to seeing most quarterbacks make. It happens. I don't want to necessarily say yips, but that's almost what it felt like in this game. Yeah, man, I think he's overthinking more than anything else. And yes, it's a change in philosophy of the offense, but this needs to change and adapt. I know we're complaining. I know we're breaking down and talking a little bit about 15-2, but higher expectations have come, and we understand what's at stake. And we also know that Patrick can make those superhuman plays. Again, I know the backups were in for the Eagles, but it goes to show your point that even at given time, and if he just lets loose and trusts himself, the arm talent is clearly still there. I'm excited for him to have Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy back next season. That's another story. But yeah, overall, I think there is something to what you're bringing up. Again, I think a lot of it is just Mahomes not trusting his instincts. He needs to get back to trusting himself and not overthinking.
You made a great point about trusting his offensive line. We're going to talk a lot about the tackle situation. I'd like to see an Xavier Worthy is down there somewhere mandate. Like once a game, I want to see one of those throws. He used to do that with Tyreek Hill. Even if they don't hit, they instill some fear in the defense. So let's bring back the long ball in 2025. Number two, moving on, the roster construction was never the optimal build. So many things happened that shifted the Chiefs in this direction. The aforementioned too high shell, right? But there's a lot of things that happened internally that dictated why they went this way. Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz simultaneously getting hurt. That really kind of didn't give them time to think about an ideal succession plan for their tackles. They had two bookend tackles, and in a snap, both were gone. Very difficult situation. CEH being a bust, I think that stung. Trent Williams, it almost, I hardly remember it now, but Trent Williams is this close to picking Kansas City and being their left tackle throughout this entire duration. Wide receiver market spiked. They were trying to sign Tyreek Hill, it sounded like. The wide receiver market got kind of out of control. I don't know if that was Christian Kirk or Devontae Adams, and they thought the contract ask was just too much. They shipped him out. They didn't really have a succession plan for him either. The Orlando Brown contract dispute, that was their kind of original plan B for tackle that they had to go on to plan C and D and E. And then I think always drafting in the bottom 4 of each round. It just must be said that that is a tough place to be. Even the Eagles haven't had that situation. The 49ers haven't had that situation. And then Rashee Rice's injury is just another unforeseen thing, as well as Hollywood Brown. But I would say that Hollywood Brown's injury with his history was a little easier to predict. I mean, that's why he didn't get a bigger contract. So I think they've gone to this dink and dunk partially because of all this. And they can't protect outside, right? They can't protect at the tackle spot. They haven't consistently had skill players who can separate. And that means they need to get rid of the ball quickly. And it just puts, again, a lot of pressure on Patrick Mahomes to either find an answer quickly or make a play. Basically, like when the first play breaks down, make a second play improv-wise. And I think the MacGyvered patchwork offense, Sunday, it split at the seams. It was kind of ready to tear all season long. And the Chiefs are just so clutch. They're so good at figuring it out late that I think they've just been papering over these flaws. I think they're forcing themselves to play all Madden mode, to grind out these late wins and play the way they are. And if you look at the Eagles, I think they're playing on rookie mode. So go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, part of it is the Eagles haven't really had to deal with Jalen Hurts on that second contract yet. Look at the cap hit this year and I know we're going to get into that in just a little bit, but the Eagles have manipulated the cap very, very well. The Chiefs are not able to because they're so far into Patrick Mahomes' non-rookie deal, right? There is something to that. The Chiefs MacGyvered it, yes, but they were playing their best football towards the end of the season, especially offensively. They had somewhat figured it out. So I think it's easy to look back on this particular game and say, well, of course it was going to fall apart. Yeah, but was it? I mean, Rashee Rice missed all year, so they went out and brought in, DeAndre Hopkins, and, Hollywood Brown got injured, so they found ways to get it done and brought in Juju Smith-Schuster, and, then they got all those guys back outside of Rashee, and the offensive weapons we're talking about maybe the deepest we have seen in the Mahomes era. The offensive line, while, yeah, I agree, we were also talking about how good and how deep the depth was. They just could not plan that they would be on their fourth tackle, who was basically a guard, because they had 2 draft picks, a third-rounder in Wanya Morris, a second-rounder in Kingsley Suamataia. They even brought in DJ Humphries, a guy that I think almost everyone just applauded and lauded when he was brought in. He immediately gets injured. It was one of those situations where things just didn't quite fall the Chiefs' way, especially when it came to playing the Eagles, right? I don't think that it was like a bad game plan, if that's more or less what you're alluding to here as far as roster construction. I get there were some non-optimal aspects about it, but I think with what you look at, I think overall, I kept going back to this. Everyone kept saying it was, the Chiefs have 1 and the Eagles have 2 through 53. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Chris Jones is the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL. Trent McDuffie is better than any cornerback on the Eagles roster. They have Zach Bond, but Nick Bolton, Leo, and Drew are linebackers 2 through 4. I'm taking Justin Reed over Reed Blankenship. Kicker-wise, you're going Harrison Butker. Creed Humphrey's the best center in football. Like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but people are acting like this Chiefs team was just a bunch of, not you saying that specifically, but like we're a bunch of bums. Like, I think the roster construction was actually fine. I thought the thought process was there. Just the result, the end result, I should say, just wasn't. This was a team that went 15-2, that went up against Buffalo, that them and Buffalo went head to head, and Kansas City came out on top. The Chiefs deserve to be there. Again, I understand that, the tackle situation, again, that's more or less what it comes down to, right? We're all talking about the tackles. I don't have a big issue with the thought process. The results weren't there. 100% I'm with you there. But the result, or the thought process, in my opinion, was they did try and take a couple cracks at that. The issue was it just didn't work.
I think the cracks they took were a little risky, honestly. Kingsley Suamataia, everyone knew he was raw. Wanye Morris has shown some flashes, but didn't show enough in his rookie season to be trustworthy as a 1A or even 1B option. And then DJ Humphries, he's coming off a serious injury. So counting on him being healthy is kind of the same thing with Hollywood Brown. It's just, it's a little bit of an unknown. And I guess what I'm saying here is this quick hitting offense, the revolving door at tackle and receiver, just the entire style of the thing. It's not what you'd create from Mahomes from scratch if you had a clean slate.
Yeah, and I see a real KB saying, so Sterling is saying it's not a play call problem or roster construction issue. I disagree. I never said it wasn't a play call problem. I think it definitely was. There was no adjustments in this game. I think play call was a ridiculously massive issue. I think it was a huge reason why the Chiefs did absolutely nothing. No, I think play call issue was huge in this game. And again, roster construction, the point I'm making here is I don't have an issue with the thought process that went behind the roster construction, if that makes sense. It did not work out. I understand that. The point I'm trying to make here is the Chiefs will never be drafted in the top 10. If you look at Jalen Carter, where was he drafted? You look at all these guys, even Nolan Smith, where was he drafted? Ahead of where the Chiefs drafted.
I think that was, in fairness, I think that was a trade with the New Orleans Saints for Chris Olave, where they got that.
Well,
pick.
it was, but the Tyreek Hill trade landed Trent McDuffie. So, so again, they both worked. The point I was trying to make is the Eagles have had 2 top 10, because they got Devontae Smith as well, 2 top 10 draft picks. The Chiefs have not drafted in the top 10. They haven't been able to. So there's going to be a little bit of back and forth in that regards. I think there are some issues. I just don't think it's as drastic as people are saying. I think the lack of adjustments is the main problem here. Again, I'm not saying that Brett Veach put together a perfect roster. I'm clearly not. He has missed on some draft picks like every other guy in the entire NFL. The point I'm trying to make is I don't think it's as drastic as people are making it seem. I don't want to be overreactionary here when I think, again, we witnessed a 15-2 team beat the Buffalo Bills, beat the Texans, beat a lot of their contemporaries when it mattered. They just got waxed on the biggest stage, so that's our lasting memory.
Yeah, I hear you. I think a recurring theme for me, and I've kind of been saying this for years with a lot of pushback from some people, is that I think Patrick Mahomes has been winning to some extent in spite of his situation and not because of it. I don't know any other quarterback that could have come close to what he did in his shoes. And maybe that's why you go this way, because he's so good that he's a talent elevator and you can focus on defense and other things. But that's just kind of been my gut feeling. Yeah. Number 3, if Travis Kelce retires, it could be ideal for everyone. Before you guys get mad, Kelce's one of my favorites. If he wants to come back, we will welcome him with open arms. But for him personally, he's getting up there, guys. He's had a lot of injuries. He's a tough guy, doesn't talk about him, has had a lot of surgeries. And if you think about his off the field star, it's never going to be hotter. It's never going to be brighter than it is right now. And it's just a great time for him to capitalize and shift careers, I think. And he played with so much passion and panache. It would just kind of suck to see Travis out there slow down, struggling, not enjoying the game, not playing with the style and flair that we're accustomed to. I want to remember the guy that was racking up yak, looking for pitches, doing crazy stuff out there, just playing with fire in his belly. And also, it would come with huge cap savings for the Chiefs. So we're talking $20 million, that cap hit. Now, if he comes back, I think they can restructure, kick some of that forward. But this just could create an opportunity to reimagine an ideal Mahomes offense.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I thought the same thing. I assume he's coming back, by the way, everyone. I know we talked and did all that stuff today. Just from what we've seen from Travis, it feels like he's not going to allow his final lasting memory to be that game. He talked about it being a grind, and I get what you're saying with his star has never been bigger. True, but the booth and all that podcast stuff will be waiting for him. You can do that with his brother anytime he wants. The NFL waits for no man. If he takes a year off, he's done. There's no coming back. So I think Travis probably plays one more year. Money's not an object, at least in my opinion. Like I don't think that he's going to be sitting here. I think it's $17 million, but it's a $20 million cap hit. However the breakdown is, I don't think that matters to him. He's made so much money. If he and Taylor Swift keep going together, he will have more money than he could ever spend in his entire lifetime. That's not the issue. It's all about if he wants to. And if he's content understanding that he's probably, this is who he is, an 850 yard a year guy now. I know we don't want to admit it. That's probably what it is. It's like Tony G. And Tony G did a great job in Atlanta. His final year was like 850 and was it 8 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns? He did it for his entire Atlanta career. That's basically what he was. But he understood his role and it worked. If Travis Kelce understands that is who he is now, the yak ability will no longer be there, and the Chiefs operate in that way, then yes, it makes sense. But you're right. The Chiefs could do a lot with $20 million if Travis Kelce decides that he is done playing football. That is a left tackle. That is the potential of bringing in a Cam Robinson or Ronnie Staley, who are both free agents. Like, that is what the difference could be. The issue is then, how do you replace Kelce? Because the offense has not been like that in the Mahomes era. You obviously gave a contract to Noah Gray, who had a really good start. Looks like a nice top end tight end 2, maybe back end tight end 1. But what you're hoping is that Noah Gray puts up numbers that Travis Kelce did this year. Right. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he can do that. Is he an 850? You probably more touchdowns, but an 850 yard receiving tight end. I don't know. You drafted Jared Wiley, but we have zero idea what he's going to look like. Again, we will find out, but a lot is going to depend on what Travis Kelce does. He will need to find out sooner or later whether he's coming back. I think March 14th is the absolute final day he will have that opportunity to determine that, because of when the contract and everything, the roster and the signing, all the bonuses and stuff. So I think you have just under a month, but the Chiefs need to know before then to know whether they have that 20 mil to work with or if that 20 mil is on the roster and Travis Kelce.
See, I was kind of having the other gut feeling about him. It sounds a lot like what his brother was saying last year. And maybe that's influencing the way I think about it too much. And I know you said the booth and podcasting will be waiting for him. I don't know that Hollywood will. If things don't go right with Taylor Swift, if they don't keep winning, if he doesn't keep playing at a high level, I think he has eyes on being Dave Bautista or The Rock. I really do. So it's very interesting. And I'm also not sure he's an 850 yards per guy going forward. You remember Antonio Gates at the end there. The guy could barely jump over a stack of pancakes. He could barely move out there. Jason Witten too. I just don't really want to see him out there like that. And maybe I don't want to doubt him either, because the guy is as motivated as they come. And in terms of, I always say he has that je ne sais quoi, that quality that cannot be named. His innate football instincts are the best I've ever seen from a non-quarterback. So I don't want to doubt him, but this is just all food for thought.
Yeah. Again, I think he comes back. I'll say it right now on February 12th. I think he comes back for one more year. Everyone can have their own opinions, their own thoughts, but I think he comes back for one more season. I would just be shocked if that's the lasting memory and the lasting game that Travis Kelce plays. That doesn't strike me as Kelce.
Oh gosh, it just makes it so tough. If that would have even been a close game for him and he played well, it could be a totally different story. Number 4, the Chiefs must move mountains to solve the left tackle position. Sterling, you laid out a couple free agent options. It'll be interesting to see what their old teams do. And they've really switched their left tackle and kind of both tackles almost every season. They've never had the same pairing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have they had the same pairing 2 years in a row?
Well, They would have had it for Eric Fisher for 2 years, but if you're going if you're going Super Bowls, it would have been Donovan for one, Orlando Brown Jr. for one, and Eric Fisher for one.
And then a different solution this year.
Yeah.
So the Jurassic Park line keeps popping up in my head.
Well, Mike Rimmers, I guess, technically for if you're counting losses too, right? Then Mike Rimmers would have been for one.
So this quote from Jurassic Park keeps popping up in my head, and it's, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And I kind of think that at first, after Super Bowl 55, obviously Brett Veach was hell-bent on finding a left tackle. And then Orlando Brown was kind of not the most ideal 1B, even though our colleague Price Carter has been arguing that they would have been better off keeping him. And he did grade out pretty well as a pass blocker.
Oh, they're correct. If you're telling me you'd rather have Orlando Brown Jr. on his contract or Jawan Taylor on his contract, yeah, the correct answer was Orlando Brown Jr. At least I think so. Everyone can have their own thoughts, but he was cheaper than Jawan, which gives you more flexibility, and it's a more important position. And I think he probably plays better than Jawan. So take that as you will. That's why I've been pretty critical of Jawan the entire time. Again, Jawan's not a bad right tackle. He's fine, but you don't pay $20 million for fine.
No, you were ahead of everybody on this, and I actually think you were right. Last year, I was feeling a little bit better about Jawan Taylor after the playoffs. This year, I'm kind of thinking, we can't get out of it, though. So that's one thing everyone needs to know. That contract this year, the cap hit would be like $30 million. No. Next year, it's $7 million. You can get out in 2026, but not in 2025. But I think Donovan Smith, that situation, and Andrew Wiley, it just kind of made Veach think Patrick Mahomes is so good at not allowing pressures to turn into sacks that maybe we can get away with this. And I realize this is a tough situation because great free agent left tackles, they do not hit the market, right? They don't hit the market, and you don't find cornerstone left tackles in the late first round very often. And you don't find them in the second and the third. I know the Bills kind of have, but those are kind of anomalies. So I want to run you through the tackle situation for some previous dynasties. These stats are from Scott Kaczmar. The 1960s Packers dynasty. Bob Skoronski was the guy the entire time. 1970s Steelers dynasty. John Kolb was the guy the entire time. 1990s Cowboys dynasty. Mark Tunoy was the guy the entire time. 2000s Patriots dynasty. Matt Light was the guy for 5 Super Bowl runs. And then 2010's Patriots dynasty. I think they're 2 separate dynasties, personally. Everyone else can think what they want. But Nate Solder was the guy for 3 Super Bowl runs. It just shows how important continuity is at that position. And it also shows how remarkable what Patrick Mahomes has achieved. And even really, I would say Andy Heck, the offensive line coach, and Andy Reid. But I think that kind of blew up in their face Sunday night.
Yeah, left tackle has to be the main priority, and it's not even close. The issue is, will the Chiefs do it? They don't draft high enough, and I know people are going to say, just draft one. You're not. Even trying to trade up, it's just too risky of a proposition. You're not getting high enough. And by the way, the last left tackle that really came out and had a great year one, who was it? You're going to say Alt. Alt's playing right tackle. Penei Sewell, he's playing right tackle. You have to go back to like Rashawn Slater. You really have to go back pretty far before you really start getting into like, okay, yeah, that right away they came in and just were studs. I mean, Andrew Thomas really struggled for the Giants. Then now he's turned into a really good left tackle, but that's even a top 10 guy. It's just so hard for the Chiefs to draft and get high enough to even have the opportunity to draft a left tackle. So I don't think that's going to happen. I don't. Again, it's not what I want, but I think the most likely situation here is you're probably looking at DJ Humphries. If Kelce comes back, you're probably looking at DJ Humphries. I don't love saying it, but that's probably the way it's going to look like. You're probably going to bring him back on a cheap deal. You'll probably move Joe Thuney back to left guard because I imagine they probably extend Joe Thuney. Creed Humphrey's already there. They probably let Trey Smith walk. And then you'll probably just roll with Kingsley Suamataia at right guard. But now here's where things get interesting, because Juwan Taylor has 1 year left in that contract. Do they put Kingsley at right guard or right tackle, Wanya Morris at right guard or right tackle, and move Juwan to the left side? That's also a possibility too. I think the Chiefs' offensive line is going to be the most fascinating position group to watch and see it unfold. Again, I'm not saying what I want. I'm just saying the Chiefs have not been super aggressive at left tackle. We keep saying, Cam Robinson. We keep saying, we want to see Ronnie Staley, who's been injured a lot. But we keep wanting to see these guys, and what ends up happening? It's the Donovan Smiths. Orlando Brown Jr. was like the big move. And it's not like Orlando Brown Jr. is even like a Trent Williams. Like, but you know what I'm saying? Like, Juwan Taylor was the big move. But Juwan Taylor is not, again, one of these elite tackles. So for me to expect that they're going to go out and bring that guy in, we've not seen that. So why would I expect that? It's not what I want, but what I think. You're either going to see Juwan Taylor starting at left tackle, you're going to see DJ Humphrey starting at left tackle, or they really have faith in Kingsley Suamataia. Because as much as I want to see a bigger name like a Ronnie Staley come in, I just don't know what's going to happen.
Juwan Taylor was a projection, and I understand why they made the projection. He had a really good year in Jacksonville. He's a good athlete, but it was a projection. So, and he hasn't taken his game to the next step.
Which, by the way, does that mean anything for Andy Heck? We keep talking about how great Andy Heck is. I'm not trying to take a knock on him, but we keep talking about how great Andy Heck is. But he's had Juwan Taylor. We haven't seen improvement. He's had Wanya Morris. He's had Kingsley Suamataia. Now, again, it's been 1 year. He was 21 years old. He's now only 22. I get that. We've seen Mike Caliendo not do a whole bunch. I mean, we've given him a whole bunch of credit for the, Allegrettis and the, the Wileys, but has the message gone stale? I don't know, but I'm just saying the last three guys, especially at tackle, we're not talking guard, we're talking tackles. The return hasn't been great.
And coaches can wear out their welcome, and things can get stale. We're actually going to get to that here in a bit. My suggestion would be, if you don't have a big solution or you're not going to take a big swing, take more bites at the apple. You can't just go in with Wanya, DJ, and Kingsley Suamataia again. I would draft another guy in the second or third round, throw another body in there, give yourself higher odds to hit on one of them, because we're just not sure if DJ Humphries is ever going to be himself again. Number 5, I think you'll find this one particularly interesting. The Chiefs need a dual-purpose running back with explosive playability. I think we love both Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco because they play their guts out. They are hard-running players. They're likable guys at this point, but honestly, I think they're replacement level players. And I don't mean that in a mean-spirited way at all. They get what the offense gives them and not much else. And with Isaiah Pacheco, he didn't even get that this year. He kind of fell off a cliff. I don't know if that's the injury, but regardless, we know vision is not his strong suit. Pat and Andy, they need a running game they can lean on when both of them are kind of panicked and not having answers to the test. That is a good reset button for when a quarterback and a coach, when that tandem needs to kind of get their shit together, that gives them a breather. That gives them time to process and think and figure out the challenge in front of them. So this is interesting. I think there's a strong argument that dangerous running games open up deep passing. And if you look at the top 4 quarterbacks in 2024 yards per attempt, Lamar Jackson, they brought in Derrick Henry. Jared Goff, not only did they bring in David Montgomery, they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. Brock Purdy, they made the big trade for Christian McCaffrey. And then Jalen Hurts, they brought in Saquon Barkley. These are smart organizations. They have realized we were 4 years ago in the running backs don't matter age, but the pendulum has swung back, and running backs matter more than any time in the past 5 years. And I think the Chiefs would be smart to kind of follow suit here and find their own version of what these other teams have done.
Yeah, I like Phantom in the chat. They're going, why? Andy will not use him anyways. Yeah, that's another story, especially for the Super Bowl game. I think they take a relatively decent swing at running back. I don't think they go out and bring in the Saquon Barkley type of guy. I don't think they draft a first-round running back, but I think you might see a running back draft in the 3rd or the 4th. KU fans, it pains me to say it, Mizzou guy over here, but like Devin Neal, is he like a 4th-round target that the Chiefs go after? Could be. The Chiefs need more explosive plays back there. The pendulum has shifted, and the market is ripe for the Chiefs to take advantage of bolstering that position without putting a ton of capital monetarily into it. I feel bad, but Pacheco, post-injury, does not look even close to the same player. He's never had great vision. I've always said he looks like he's going really far because of how he runs. And then you're like, oh, that was a 3-yard, 4-yard gain, right? And everyone's like, oh, look at that. Yeah, you don't get bonus credit. You don't get extra yards for looking tough. I really like Pacheco, and I hope he comes back healthy next year. I'm not saying that you cut him. I don't even think you need to really get rid of Kareem Hunt. He can still be a short yardage guy, but you need to have more explosive plays back there. I don't know what that means and where that leaves Samaje Perine. But yeah, I think you're going to see a lot different running back room next year because they need something different because this is just not working.
I'd like to see a strong 1A, a guy that is dual purpose in the Alvin Kamara mode. Not Alvin Kamara at this point because now he's too old, now he's too expensive. But a guy when he's on the field, you do not know what the Chiefs are doing. So that's the kind of player I'm looking at. Unfortunately, last year was a great year for running backs in free agency. This year, not as good. We have Najee Harris. I'm just telling you who's on the market.
Yeah.
The headliners are Najee, Aaron Jones, who's 30 and can't stay healthy. But I love Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb, who is also like 29, somewhat interesting. And then you start looking at trades like, would Seattle part with Zach Charbonnet? Would the Jaguars part with Travis Etienne? Do you even call the Colts to see, hey, where are you at with your timeline? Is Jonathan Taylor available? You're probably going to get hung up on with that one, but I think they should look to answer what these other teams have done at the running back position.
Yeah.
Number 6, the Eagles are showing the league how to manipulate the salary cap, and the Chiefs must get more aggressive to keep up in the arms race. So I'm going to explain void years to you guys because we're going to dig into that a little bit. Void years let teams spread a bonus out over 5 extra fake years, lowering cap hits while pushing dead money into the future. That gives you instant cap relief for win now moves this year. And the thought there is with the influx of gambling money, with tech money in Google and Amazon, the salary cap continues to explode. So if you're pushing Jalen Hurts' contract from now into the future, well, that's going to be what could be like a top 5 quarterback contract right now. If you're paying for it right now, in the future, it's going to be a bargain, and you can just kind of keep running up that bill until the era ends and you have to take your medicine. People always use the Saints as an example. Well, the problem with the Saints is Sean Payton left, Drew Brees retired, and they thought they could keep on going on like that and not have a reset period and not take their salary cap medicine. Well, that blew up in their face. Anyway, here are the salary cap dollars in void year rankings. So the Eagles right now, they have $390.4 million in void years. They're number 1. Number 2 is the San Francisco 49ers at $204.1 million. Number 10 is the Detroit Lions at $52.1 million. 11 is the Baltimore Ravens at $50.8 million. 16 is Buffalo at $33.1 million. And then at 28, you have the Kansas City Chiefs, $1.86 million. The Chiefs were a bit higher in cash over cap spending this year. The way I think about the cap is a 5-year or so apparatus, not just like 1 year. I think it's a complicated thing. So a lot of fans just think whatever the cap is that year, there's no way around it when there's actually a lot of flexibility. But throughout the Mahomes era, they've consistently been bottom 10 in that kind of spending. Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, and their general manager, Howie Roseman, I think they're providing a sustainable roadmap. I've kind of been pointing to them for years. And what I always hear is, Well, then why aren't they better than the Chiefs? The Chiefs are better. The Chiefs are winning because they're frugal. And I don't think that's the case. And also, the Chiefs are now not better than the Eagles. The Eagles are, for this year at least, the model franchise. I'm not saying the Chiefs need to go to those links, anywhere close to those links. But if you look at that Buffalo, Detroit, Baltimore range, to not use this tool at all, the way those franchises are, I think you're tying an arm behind your back. Sterling, I'm just really eager to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, you don't have to go old Saints, and you don't have to even do, as you're saying, the Eagles method, but somewhere in between. Start going to the Detroit, Baltimore, 10, 11 range. There's no reason not to, especially with the amount of money pouring in from all the playoff wins and the Super Bowl. That's more or less the frustration I think some fans have. It's like, hey, you're winning and getting all these extra bonus. Can you try and spin it to help Patrick out? Give him time. And I do think a lot of times that 15, Patrick, can help alleviate some of the overarching issues. That was why the Chiefs were better than the Eagles for so long. It was, because they have Patrick Mahomes. Well, when Patrick has a bad game, you saw what happened. It was a dumpster fire. It was brutal. So, yeah, there's more things that Chiefs could do. Will they do it? They have not done it in the past. Again, it's one of those ones where it's like, what do we want? What makes sense? You and I've talked about it, but what is the realistic option? What do we think's actually going to happen? I don't think the Chiefs would do that. The best chance of them opening up some money is just converting one of Patrick's, they can restructure and turn it into a bonus. And all of a sudden now you got a whole bunch of money to work with, but are the Chiefs willing to do that? Basically, is Clark Hunt willing to do that?
Yeah, and my worry with Clark Hunt, and I know the Hunts have given a lot to Kansas City, so it's a touchy subject to criticize him, but my worry is that he sees Patrick Mahomes as a way to compete for titles on a budget. And that is really frustrating to me, because if Jeffrey Lurie was our owner, he would be maxing out Patrick Mahomes more than he's currently being maxed out. And that would be my advice is, Patrick Mahomes is going to be good. He's got a bright career, a long career ahead of him. Just keep kicking his contract down the road the way the Eagles are with Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts' base salary this year was like 1-point-something million. Now they do that with almost all their stars. You don't have to do that, but to do that with Patrick Mahomes, I think is a viable option. I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot as the offseason continues. Number 7, Andy Reid's coaching staff is too incestuous. So I think they have a stale offense, a lack of innovation really this year beyond kind of gimmicks. On Sunday, they showed no ability to adapt. There were no adjustments. We were all screaming at the TV. I thought they were going to bring in a 6th offensive lineman and go jumbo, start screwing around with the formations. Maybe we see diamond or something. I just thought they would throw the kitchen sink at the Eagles, and they just did none of that. So the non-existent running game, I think we could use a new running game coordinator. It is just kind of flatlined. And my advice would be to go out and get new thinking from someone who's outside the building, outside the tree, and even outside the West Coast system. Just someone, I think, in any kind of group effort in life, any kind of company or team, or even like making a movie or something, a team of rivals is a good thing. People challenging each other's ideas. And I don't think the Chiefs are really doing that right now. And I don't think Matt Nagy is the problem, but I think personality-wise, Eric Bieniemy was probably more likely to be the kind of guy that challenged the room than Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's not calling the plays, either was EB, but I think that could be the difference. So I would like them to hire an outside voice to shake things up. I don't want that to be Doug Peterson. I don't want that to be another retread. I don't know what the position would be, but I'd like to see them borrow from someone else's tree and bring some new thinking into the coaching staff.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. I'm not blaming Matt Nagy, but Matt Nagy is going to be the scapegoat almost in this situation. It's hilarious. Again, we're talking about a team that made it to the Super Bowl and did what Buffalo dreamed of doing, what the Bengals could only think about. Like I get it. We're spoiled here. But I do think that sometimes you're right. A little change can be good. And I think the defense, for the most part, is fine. I'm not worried about Spags. You hope Dave Merritt stays, Cullen, all that stuff. We're not even really talking about the defense as much. But I think defense, you almost want the continuity more than anything. While offense, you want to challenge and create and differ to have more ideas. You're right. The lack of adjustments was frustrating. Is that because Matt Nagy doesn't want to stand up to Andy? Is he too lockstep with him? I don't know. Who knows? But something I think does need to help bring in a new voice and a new idea to at least try and switch something up. Because, again, the offense has taken a step back in, 2 straight seasons now? I get no time, but still, it's not trending the correct way. That's what I think. So you're probably right. A new voice would be lovely to have in Arrowhead.
But even when Eric Bieniemy was in the coaching staff, that Super Bowl in I guess the 2020 season, in 2021 Super Bowl, the same thing happened on the field where Patrick Mahomes kind of panicked. His teammates looked at him and panicked, and Andy Reid was just kind of shell-shocked on the sideline. I'm wondering how this pattern keeps repeating itself. Is it Andy being stubborn? Is it just the limits of this kind of scheme and the talent they have? I just couldn't believe we all were sitting there thinking they were going to make a change on the line or just do things differently. And it just never came. I still can't get over it.
Yeah, and by the way, really quickly, I see there from AC Phila. We got an Eagles fan in here. Is being nice. Shout out to you, and hopefully you're celebrating and having fun. You're right. I mean, when I say adjustments, they did at one time put Kelce and Pacheco. They did a max protect 1 or 2 times, and it didn't matter. Sweat broke through both of them for a sack. I'm not even saying the one-offs necessarily as far as the adjustments. I'm saying the RPOs, running the football, some of these quick passes. They kept trying to use these long, drawn-out plays when clearly the offensive line, normal Holmes, was doing any favors to each other trying to buy time. So it didn't matter if guys were open down the field because they didn't have time to get the ball down the field. And when we say adjustments too, I mean, moving Joe Tooney back to left guard and bringing in DJ Humphries at left tackle, which was a talking point heading into that game. So again, yes, they tried max protect. Didn't matter because the Eagles just mollywopped them. I'm with you, but I don't consider a couple plays of max protect that didn't work a massive adjustment. My 2 cents.
Me neither. I don't know if you heard this, but I guess Nate Taylor said that they were thinking about putting in Kingsley Suamataia at left guard and giving Mike Caliendo the yank. That's kind of the move they were looking at, and he was warming up on the sideline, and they just didn't go there. That's interesting to me. Kingsley being active and Wanye Morris being inactive, and them thinking about going to him before DJ Humphries. I don't know what that means or if it means anything. Just an interesting tidbit to throw out there. Number 8, draft another wide receiver early in this draft. I've been a proponent of this strategy for years now, kind of the Pittsburgh Steelers strategy where you perpetually reload and bring in these guys, and then you don't have to pay them these expensive deals. And I know you and I are both huge fans of Deontay Johnson, but they got some good use out of him, and
not anymore.
and what the hell happened to that guy? It's like they use these guys up, and once they spit them out, they're the Antonio Browns, the Mike Wallaces, they're basically done. But you get 4 or 5 good years out of them, or less if you need to trade them. I mean, they traded Chase Claypool for what, a second? I mean, that's insane. That's like Grand Theft Auto or something, or grand larceny. I don't know. So, but also I think the best 2 additions of the past 2 seasons, the best addition in 2023 was Rashee Rice. The best addition last year, I think, was Xavier Worthy. And I think after some missteps, if you're talking McCole Hardman, who is, not a complete bust, had some utility, but not what you wanted. Sky Moore, complete bust. Kadarius Toney didn't work out, but then you have Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. I think they're kind of onto something. And a different receiver has led the Chiefs. I'm talking wide receiver in yardage for 4 years in a row. Again, you look at the Eagles and the continuity they now have with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. that is just the kind of situation you want to create. And I know we're probably not going to have two receivers of that caliber, but I just think you have to keep adding. Especially, I know we're all excited about Rashee Rice. I'm excited about Rashee Rice, but he is coming back from a major knee injury, and he does have a suspension looming. And I don't want to put the entire offense on the not so broad shoulders of Xavier Worthy. I think he's going to be an incredible player. I'm not sure he's a wide receiver one who can just go out there and do everything and that you can run an offense through him. I'm not sure he's not that, but we haven't seen that with his body type a lot. I thought the receivers besides him looked old and slow on Sunday. I would not bring DeAndre Hopkins or Hollywood Brown back. I would let them walk. I would try to build a lasting receiver room where you're drafting guys and you're replenishing every 4 or 5 years, and you just kind of cycle through them and you have continuity. What do you think about that game plan, Sterling?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think there's more pressing issues in wide receiver. Again, we'll see how long Rashee Rice is out for, but Rice and Worthy are going to be a problem for a lot of teams. I don't hate bringing back, as Jay Brickman says, Worthy, Rice, and Hollywood. I think that could make some sense. DeAndre, I'm okay on. Again, all depends on the contract. I mean, if you wanted to have him at wide receiver 4, fine. I thought the wide receiver room was actually pretty damn good. I mean, if you told me you could have Rice and Worthy whenever Rice gets back as your 1 and 2, and you were able to have Hollywood. It's not, again, it's all coming down to money, of course, but what's Hollywood going to cost? I don't see it being much. Another offseason to get with Patrick, another, chance to get fully healthy and drafting a wide receiver makes some sense. I just don't want to spend a first or second rounder on it, I guess. I think there's more pressing issues, the cornerback room, maybe another edge rusher. Obviously, we're talking about offensive line help as well, but, that's more or less where I'm at.
And my reaction to that wasn't that I think we don't need another edge rusher, because I do. I just don't think the Chiefs are Brett Veach in particular. John Dorsey obviously drafted Chris Jones. And I think George Karlaftis is a fine player. I thought he was the obvious draft choice at that point in that draft. I just don't know that he's good at drafting edges. I'm really worried at this point about FAU. I wasn't a year ago, but if you show us almost nothing in 2 years, you got to worry if we burned another first-round pick. So now that I've seen a track record that they know how to identify and draft receivers and onboard them and on-ramp them quickly, I'm more open to that. And I would rather have them go out and find an edge like they did with Charles Omenihu in free agency, because you know what you're going to get there. And sometimes defensive linemen aren't integrated fast, whereas a guy like a receiver, in the Chiefs offense, they can get them going pretty fast, which didn't used to be the case with Andy Reid, but it is now. So that's sort of my thinking. Number 9, getting blown out in the Super Bowl was better than a close loss. Nope. I know this sounds a little crazy, but hear me out. The Chiefs' brain trust won't be able to turn a blind eye to the flaws now. They've got pressure on them. There's no excusing the performance. There's obviously some issues. And I think barely losing might have convinced them to do this whole run it back thing again. And right now, I believe everything's fixable, so they don't have to have a gap between Mahomes 2.0 really thriving and Mahomes 3.0 thriving in terms of those phases, just like you didn't have much of a gap between 1.0 and 2.0. I think there's some stink on the franchise right now that will create a sense of urgency. And to me, a loss is a loss. An L is an L, whether it's 1 or 100. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. You either win or you lose. So that's where I'm at. I think that is the silver lining. You can say copium, whatever, but that's my thinking.
I agree. A loss is a loss, but watching it meant a lot. That just sucked to watch. Grand scheme of things, we'll look back on this and it really doesn't matter. But as far as watching purposes, no, a close loss is much better. I can handle close losses. I mean, I'm handling this fine. It's just one of those situations where it's just boring. I don't want to overreact. I am trying to bring some nuance here. I'm team, let's not overreact to changes need to happen. But again, don't forget, they still had their best game of the season against their arch rival, the Bills, and they came out on top. there is still something to. There's a lot of good. Let's be real here. There's a lot of damn good still here in one Arrowhead drive.
Thinking about the Bills too, there was that question circulating on social media. How would the Bills have fared? Would they have fared better against the Eagles? Man, that Bills secondary was trash. It really was. If you look at the way the Chiefs had success against them and the way the Eagles secondary kind of choked out the receivers for the Chiefs, I don't think the Bills would have had any chance. The Eagles were just a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
So you know what I was thinking about in terms of you have great perspective on this in terms of being grateful and all that. I was thinking about the halftime shows of the Super Bowl. The only one I remember of the last 6 years is Dr. Dre, because I've been so preoccupied the other 5 times with the Chiefs. Someone asked me about Super Bowl commercials today. I don't remember any Super Bowl commercials because I've been so preoccupied with the Chiefs being in every Super Bowl, which is just mind-blowing. So some much needed perspective. And yes, it was tough to swallow, but we did kind of get the Band-Aid ripped off. As soon as it was 24-0, I was like, that's a wrap. So number 10, as a Mizzou guy, I'm hoping you're on board with me. I'm not sure. Bring back Nick Bolton, let Trey Smith walk. This might seem counterintuitive, but I just don't think Trey Smith is a good enough pass blocker to warrant $25 million. And I think pass blocking is what matters most in Kansas City with Andy Reid, with Patrick Mahomes. There's going to be a bidding war for his services. Even if he had a little bit of an off night, he has enough of a track record that I think, and what we saw last year with Robert Hunt, there was a bidding war for his services, and Carolina threw him the bag. I think Nick Bolton is going to be easier to retain. He's the brain of the defense. He's the heart of the defense. He's not a perfect player, but I thought the defense played pretty damn well on Sunday. And actually, I think if the offense wouldn't have kept putting them on the field constantly, 3 and outs, turnovers, they just wore down, but they did a commendable job against Saquon Barkley. And there are certain guys on that defense like Turk Wharton, like Drew Tranquil, that I want to see back because of the way they were playing, the pride they were showing late in that game. But I think if you pair Bolton with Chris Jones, Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, and coached by Steve Spagnuolo, Dave Merritt, and Joe Cullen, that group, you've got a strong enough core to focus on fixing the offense this offseason. I think we've been focusing on the defense a little bit more these past several years, and I think it's time to shift focus back on getting the offense back to being a little bit more potent scoring-wise.
Yeah. By the way, yeah, just to your point, I thought Drew, Nick Bolton, and Tershawn Wharton played phenomenal against the Eagles. Doesn't matter. They lost. I understand. But those 3 guys in particular really played some good ball. The reason why I'm actually agreeing with you, Trey Smith is good. I really like Trey Smith. But the Chiefs they can't afford to pay a $25 million guard. It's either Trey or Joe, and they'll probably keep Joe because Joe is better. Joe Tooney. Joe will be cheaper. Yeah, he's older, but he also has more positional versatility. I really don't think they'll be able to keep Trey Smith, just monetarily speaking. It doesn't make sense roster construction wise, especially if everyone wants to see a left tackle come in. If you want to see a left tackle come in, you're definitely not seeing Trey Smith on this roster. I think Nick Bolton's probably back. Reason being, you can't lose Justin Reed and Nick Bolton. You can't lose both in the same offseason. You just can't do that. You're losing Spags would be losing his two guys, his 2 main pieces that he really trusts, getting guys in the right spot, the intelligence factor there. So I think Nick Bolton's back again, barring something crazy. If a team offers him, ridiculous money, they'll have to make do. But I think the Chiefs will be fairly competitive in bringing back Nick Bolton, while Trey Smith, I don't see an avenue that really makes sense. Could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but the Chiefs have drafted guards. It hasn't really worked out so far as his replacement. We have a long offseason with Wanye and Kingsley, and maybe it is Caliendo at right guard. Maybe that helps him out. We'll find out. But they haven't drafted Nick Bolton's replacement. So for me, the tea leaves tells me Bolton's back and Trey Smith is not.
And they also drafted Justin Reed's replacement. So I think all signs are pointing to Nick Bolton. You hear the way Steve Spagnuolo talks about him and his photographic memory and him being a coach on the field. I'm with you. I don't think he's going to give up both Justin Reid and Nick Bolton. And I think Spags has earned the right to say, hey, you analytics guys and you front office guys, this may not seem like the savviest move in the world, but I'm the defensive coordinator that is engineering this thing. And I'm telling you, Nick Bolton and his intangibles go way further than any numbers you could come up with would tell you. So just trust me here. I need my field general. Let's stick with him. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And again, maybe Justin Reid's back too. We'll see what the contract even looks like. I mean, Trey Smith's just the name that jumps out because of what we all assume he's going to get, what the rumblings have been. While Bolton, who knows? I mean, if you told me Nick Bolton got a 3-year, $33 million contract, I'd believe it. If you told me Nick Bolton got a 3-year, $45 million or a 3-year, $50 million contract, I would also believe that too. Seriously, and maybe it's not from the Chiefs. I just think Nick Bolton's market value is wide-ranging. His intangibles, his intelligence is the best. That and his tackling, of course, that makes him stand out. But do teams value that versus the ability to have some more coverage ability in your linebacker? We'll see. And then Justin Reid is, again, safety. That position is it hasn't really been valued, especially at his age. You've seen guys go elsewhere at that age on very cheap deals. I mean, Justin Simmons was, cut from the Broncos. I mean, so again, it's so hard to predict. The linebacker and safety market is the hardest positions to really predict defensively. Cornerbacks and defensive line, those guys get paid, but those dudes, wow.
Two quick thoughts there. First, on Justin Reid, there is a trend, and I think Trent McDuffie is going to break this trend with his extension, but Marcus Peters, Juan Thornhill, Tyrann Mathieu, L'Jarius Sneed, Charvarius Ward. They just don't bring those guys back at that age in the defensive backfield. They trust Veach and his front office to draft and Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo to develop in the secondary.
But the difference was he's always had one safety. You're right, in the secondary, they let guys walk outside of one guy. Like they'll bring in a veteran. I don't know if they would just turn it over to Brian Cook, Shamari Connor, and Jaden Reed. That's what we all expect, right? But they've not done that. That would be a little bit out of the ordinary. He's always had I know it's going way back in the injuries, but it went from Eric Berry to Tyrann Mathieu into Justin Reid. He's had a veteran at one safety spot almost the entirety of his tenure. Just something I think to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's going to tell us a lot what they think of Jaden Hicks, what they do here. And personally, I think CB2, I was not pleased with the way Jalen Watson played in the Super Bowl. Maybe you can blame that on his injury and he wasn't himself, but
I think you can. I do think you can there. I'm with you. He played poor, but I also thought at times he was somewhat in like that catch that Devontae Smith made. That's pretty damn good defense. I mean, his hand's in there. Just Devontae and Jalen Hurts, all credit in the world. They just made a better play. It is what it is. It happens. But I do think a full offseason healthy for Jalen Watson would do him some good, although it is important to remember this is now back-to-back years with some pretty significant injuries for Jalen Watson.
So you pair that with Najee Johnson, I'm okay with. The guy was a 7th rounder. I mean, the fact that he's even getting on the field is a plus. But Joshua Williams, former 4th rounder, plus athlete, big corner. We just had such high hopes for him, and it's not going to work out. So they need to take another flyer at that position. The last thing I'll say about Nick Bolton is think back to the Chiefs coming off of 2018 when they had one of the worst defenses in the league, and it cost them from going to the Super Bowl. And they needed a leader of that defense. They needed to inject some championship swagger. So they went out and got Tyrann Mathieu. If you think about the Chiefs and what Nick Bolton has meant to that locker room and that defense and the championship swagger and DNA he would inject into another franchise, that championship tax, someone might be willing to pay that with Nick Bolton, and they just might move him out of the Chiefs price range.
Yeah, 100% a possibility there.
All right, guys, we went long, so we're gonna skip what's spinning this week and just get you out of here. We're gonna be with you guys all off season. We love talking draft. We love talking free agency. Same schedule is going to keep up. Obviously, not the games day stuff, but we're going to be with you for 4 podcasts a week. If you dig the Arrowhead Addict community, some ways you can help us grow. First off, right here on YouTube, subscribe. That way you never miss a show, a short, anything that we do. If you're an audio listener on Spotify or Apple, please consider giving us a 5-star review. That will really help me and Sterling here. And if you want to ask us a question, we will answer that on our Thursday show. Be sure to check out the Mothership. Matt Connor and those guys have you covered every day. It's a great place to kind of wake up and start your morning coffee rounds. I highly suggest it. Thanks to the chat. You guys always bring it, especially on a day-to-day on a day like today when we're a little gloomy over. I've got rain here. You've got snow there. The Chiefs really, it's almost had a funeral type vibe this week. So thank you guys for cheering us up. Join us live next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central right here on the Arrowhead Addict YouTube channel. Until then, go Chiefs.